So COVID-19 to me has been the comet. You've seen the movie, right? Don't Look Up. It has been the comet that has caused people to look at the ability to change, and the fact that we are malleable. We can make a difference. And so over the last couple of years, some amazing things have happened to our society and around the world, haven't they? Some positive, a lot of them very negative. But one of the positive things was the fact that the climate improved during that period of time. The Chinese research shows that the season of growing improved, more coverage, more green coverage of their lands. During the time of COVID-19, when we cut down on transportation, we dropped the pollution of the atmosphere by about 10%. And you could see it. The earth, it was recovering. We reduced the damage and we could see the recovery. So, we talked about infectious disease, chronic disease, and climate change. And being well-informed, you have the underlying factor that you can control. You can fix your diet. You have the possibility, given the right kind of information, you could fix it. And the influence will be huge. In fact, it'll be of greater influence than anything I can imagine us doing. The damage done with a bad diet, which is a rich American diet, to you personally, to your community, to your country, and to your planet is far greater than the damage done by alcohol, heroin, cocaine, tobacco, all put together and rolled into one. Diet is so important. Well, let me talk to you about my new passion, which is diet therapy for planet Earth. Yeah, diet therapy, that's a term, it's just like starch. When I came out with the idea that you ought to be talking about starch, my book editor said, you're cutting your nose off to spite your face. I said, people need to learn the term starch. That's what it's called. It was industry that perverted the name and changed it to complex carbohydrates. Can you identify a complex carbohydrate, your gardener on your plate? Well, your grandma could identify a starch because that's what they used to call it: rice, corn, potatoes, breads, and pastas. And that's what I've used as diet therapy to help my patients. Well, we developed a website, and I'm going to encourage you to visit it. It's in progress. And it needs your attention. It needs to be spread as much as possible because we have a world to save. And that website can be easily reached at McDougallFoundation.org, not .com, but .org. And what you're going to find on this website that we've been developing over the past year is you'll find a storybook filled with optimism. You've got to be overwhelmed with the negative reports. You have to be. Don't you want to? Would you rather hear about we're condemned and we don't have a chance? Would you rather hear about what we can do? Even if there's just a small chance that what we do will make a difference. I'm certainly not going to stop fighting. So let's talk about what we can do. And that's what this website is dedicated to. It's the food. Put together a few studies for you, and I want you to take this presentation and stop it along the way so that you can look these up. That's why I put them there for you. That's why I put the references there for you. I want you to read them. The first thing I want you to read is the present state that we are in. And that is a situation I've tried to emphasize to you over and over again, is that we passed the point where we can solve this by just stopping pollution of the environment, getting rid of fossil fuels, solar, wind. We've gone past that. We have to do that, but it's too late. If we don't want to have an unlivable planet. When we first started talking about climate change, or at least I remember, It was something in the distant future. You remember, it was like, we didn't have to worry about it. Our kids would be dead. Our grandkids would be dead. It was like 100 years from now. It was the next century that we'd have to worry about it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the polar caps have melted. There's still a little bit of ice left, but forest fires are everywhere, wildfires and droughts and hurricanes. And excuse me, if you haven't noticed what's going on, then you're asleep. And a lot of people talk about how it'll be 2050. We got to 2050. Good grief, what is that? That's all, almost 30 years. We don't have to worry about it. But, people who are real serious, they'll tell you, like Goodland and E-Lancet Commission, they'll tell you we don't have until 2050. I hope we have until 2030 because that's the plan. The plan is to get this world to change to a diet that will support planet Earth. And we're going to talk to you about that diet. So you start with this particular paper, which is a classic. All the papers I'm showing you are classics. And you face the fact that the only way we're going to get out of this trouble, the only way your children, and not just your grandchildren, your children are going to have a future, is to take advantage of what I'm going to show you next. Because we have powerful medicine, but it has to be done. Can we do it? The Danes did it 100 years ago. 3 million of them. Can 7 billion people do this? I don't know. I bet with your help we can. I bet so. Let's see. This particular paper says that a vegan diet leads to an 83% reduction in global greenhouse gas emissions from the current levels. And I want you to notice that if you do this as a person, this is an overnight reduction in your contribution to global warming. Overnight. I want you to read that paper. And this one out of the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition, they found that reductions are available at a range of 62 to 78%. And you'll read that paper and you'll see that, various genders and the two genders and various age groups, they got different results, but a 62 to 78% reduction overnight in greenhouse gases. Lancet Planet Health. Lancet is one of the most respected journals in the world. They tell you can reduce overnight, you as an individual, up to 84% of your contribution to greenhouse gases. There aren't very many naysayers out there. I'm showing you the bulk of the research. Public Library of Science, independent organization that puts out some of the most highly respected scientific papers ever. And they report if we change our diet, we end animal agriculture, we can stabilize greenhouse gases and offset 68% of the CO2 emissions that are going on now. Don't you feel encouraged? Don't you feel like there's something you could do? I sure do. Here's another paper from the Public Library of Science. It showed reductions of 70% in greenhouse gas emissions by switching to a vegan diet. We're going to talk about that word vegan in a minute. But you get the point. When you give up the animals and their body parts, you're talking about the vegan diet. The same diet that I use my interpretation of a vegan diet that I use to help 12,000 people. Personally, I helped 12,000 people regain their lost health. And hopefully we've helped hundreds of thousands more that I didn't have the opportunity to see as my personal patients. The Lancet Commission, published in the Lancet, the most respected medical journal in the world in the year, just a couple of years ago. Plant-based diets could reduce emissions up to 80%. Excuse me, don't you feel empowered? Don't you feel like you want to go out and change your sister, your brother, your mother, your dad, your children, People in your church. I sure do. Environmental research letters, 81% reduction overnight. Lancet Planet Health, here's another one of their papers. And this is about the lowest I could find as far as the benefits go. Nearly a 50% reduction in greenhouse gases. So, kind of put it together and just say you can reduce your contribution of pollution to the environment by 80% by changing from the Western diet, which I realize many have already made these changes. You have, I know. And I'm speaking to the choir, so to speak. But you have friends and relatives who haven't. And the potential is huge. And probably the most optimistic paper and probably the most thorough paper shows an 87% reduction in greenhouse gases. You should take the trouble to read this. I'll give you the reference to all these places. All these papers are open access. You can read them for free. They're so important that the journals and the authors of these papers presented them for free on the internet for you. You can read every one of them, and I want you to.